What's up, guys? Welcome back to Super Sketch. Today we're gonna lap some valves. We're gonna be doing it on the Riviera, the big block, the 455. I just finished painting it. Well, painting it again for the second time. I sprayed them aluminum. They came out nice. They just weren't gonna look good on the motor. The tuner in me wanted me to make them aluminum, but just painting them that color, painting them silver wasn't gonna make them lighter. They're still gonna weigh 90 pounds. So they're gonna look better this way. They're gonna look better red. And now we got the two-tone red paint job here with the Gliptol and the fire engine red. But they just dried, they just set up, so we're gonna take you over to the bench and I'm gonna show you how to lap some valves. If you've never done it before, it's super easy. Once you do one, you'll get used, you kind of learn, and you'll just get faster and faster along the way. There will be an audible change, you'll be able to feel it in your hands. There will also be an audible change in the sound that it's making when it's grinding. A lot of people use different types of compound. Personally, I use a oil-based compound. People hate it. Sometimes I hate it too. I don't like it. The reason why is the oil base, once it gets on anything, the suction cup that holds your valve that you're actually going to spin, it just doesn't want to stick to it anymore. A lot of people use the water-based stuff, and you put it on, you start lapping your valve, and eventually it literally disappears. It dissipates. You barely have to clean anything off. With this oil-based stuff, a little bit will go a long way, and also it comes in two varieties. It comes in a coarse and a fine, and every time I've used it, even though it has been a pain sometimes, the seats come out nice and just shiny and beautiful. And let's say one of your seats is a little bit worse off than the other, or your valve is a little worse off, you can run the course a little bit longer and get some of that pitting or stuff out if you didn't get your valves cut or you didn't have new seats pressed in like this one. But we're going to take you over to the bench, and I'm going to show you how to do it. So stay tuned, man. Alright guys, we're over here at the workbench and we're getting ready to lap these valves in. I'm getting ready to show you how to lap these valves in. But first I wanted to take a little time and I wanted to explain why we're lapping these valves and why it's so important to have good seats, good contact between your valve and your seats. So this is a 4-stroke engine. All cars will be a 4-stroke engine. And it took my time, my precious time, and I drew out this little diagram for you explaining all 4 of the cycles. So it's 4 strokes, so 1, 2, 3, and 4. Alright? So the first one's going to be the intake. So what's going to happen is the piston's going to be going down, and while the piston's going to be down, it's going to be making a vacuum in here. So it's going to be drawing in the fuel in the air. Alright, so vacuum, fuel, air, the intake valve is open because it's letting all that fuel in that air in. Alright, so the next stroke is going to be the compression stroke. That's going to be when the piston goes all the way at the bottom and it's starting to come back up now. We have all this fuel and this air in here. It's just messing around, just frolicking around, not doing anything. But when this piston comes up, it's going to compress all this fuel and this air. And when you compress fuel and air, it gets highly volatile. So when it gets all the way up to its top of the stroke, it's going to be the power stroke now. Both valves are shut, just like it was in the compression stroke, because they're coming up. So these valves have to be shut here to get compression, because if one of these were open, when the piston came up, it just let all the fuel and the air out. So on the next stroke, we just hit our top dead center. We just got our maximum compression. The spark went off from the spark plug, and then bam, that's the power stroke. DOS power right there says it. So a little explosion happens in here while both of these valves are shut. And the reason what we're doing today is we're lapping these valves right here, so the seal between the head and the valve is as nice as we can get it, as tight as we can get it, because we don't want any air and any fuel getting out, because we want the most power we can get out of this. We want this explosion to give us as much as we can out of it. So the explosion happens, bam! The piston goes down, it starts on its way down because the explosion is forcing it down. So once it goes all the way to the bottom, it's going to start its final stroke. The piston is going to start coming up, and that's when the intake valve is going to open. or the exhaust valve. However, the exhaust valve is going to open, and while that piston's coming up, it's going to push all that spent fuel and that spent air out, because the explosion already happened. We need to get fresh stuff in there. So the piston's coming up, pushing all that out of the exhaust side, the exhaust valve, and then it will start back up here on the intake. So it's all the way at the top. Now the piston's going to go down again, make that vacuum, bring in the fuel in the air, rinse and repeat over and over again. So this is why we're getting these seats as nice as we can. We want them to be metal on metal, just like perfect contact, because if you have any gouges or scratches or just over time, the seats will start to wear because they're metal. Even though they're hardened, they're metal, and they will wear over time because the force that you're getting out of this, the power stroke, is immense. And not only are these valves very important, but that's why you have 2 compression rings on your piston, and those are just as important, because what's the point if the explosion happens and then after the explosion happens, the force, the power will be sneaking through here, this little gap here, and going down into your crankcase, and that's just loss of power too. So we're trying to get these to seal as best as we can, and we're trying to get these rings to seal as best as we can. When an engine starts to wear out over time, I mean, there are bearings and stuff that will wear out over time too, but what happens is the tolerances get looser here and looser here. So when that explosion happens, you're losing the power instead of it sending down the piston as far as we can. So I rambled a little bit, but that's your 4-stroke engines pretty much there. All right, so now we know why we are wanting to get these seals as good as we can, because that's what these are. They're sealing the combustion chamber off from leaking fuel and air out. So we have our valves here. Let's see what we got. Driver's side first. Here's my exhaust, so it'd be this way, so this guy. All right, so bam. These are fairly big valves, if you can see. Generally, typically on most engines, well, all of the ones I do, the intake side is always bigger than the exhaust side. That's just because after you spin the fuel, it decreases in volume because you used up its energy. But that's not important because they all lap the same. This is something you don't do dry, so get some oil, dip it in your oil can if you have to. I'm just going to go ahead and this is something you don't want to do dry, and also the goal here is to not to get your rubbing compound. Oh, no fun. Readjust here. That's going to make it funner for me, but this is to not get your rubbing compound in between the valve stem and the guide. So you don't want to get it here because you want this tolerance on this valve as tight as you can get it in the valve stem, because you don't want the air leaking out or oil leaking in, even though there's seals up top. So this is something you always oil. You don't ever do this dry, and you don't want to get any rubbing compound in. So now that's the first thing. That was the most important. You got to get oil down there. You don't do this dry. Let's talk about the tools we're going to use. Some people do this like with electric drills and stuff. I never would. All it takes is a split second too long, and you're going to take off too much material, and you're going to ruin your seats. And these are brand new seats in all the exhaust side, because this was a 1970 car, so that's pre-emissions. So these weren't hardened. That's when they used to use lead fuel. If I could talk, what would I say, right? I had to put hardened valve seats into this guy because I didn't want to run lead additive into my fuel. I would have to go, and before I'd have to go and I would only put premium in this engine, 91 or 93 if I could get it. Could never run ethanol based gas, and also I would have to, every gas tank I would have to go and buy a little bottle of lead additive that I would have to put in my gas tank and then fill my gas tank up. So it was putting lead into it. Some states it's not even legal. You can't even do that. Like I think in California you can't even have that. So then we got that. These are our tools. This is the compound I was talking about earlier. It's grease-based, oil-based. Let's see. Yeah, grease mixed instead of water. With the water one, when you do this, it will eventually just turn to powder, and then you'll be grinding metal on metal, which doesn't really work very well. But this one, it comes with two. It comes with this gray one right here, which is a coarse, and then this white one that's a fine. So I'll knock down the majority of the work I need to do with the coarse, and then I'll hit it with the fine to get the nice seal that I want. Another thing is a valve lapper tool. Like I was telling you, some people use this on a drill. What they'll do is they'll take this little attachment. It's a little suction cup here and a wooden handle. They'll take a little suction cup, put it on a drill, or they'll go on the back side and they'll grab the back of the valve and they'll spin it. I will never do that. It's not the way I was taught, and I've seen it go horribly wrong. They make a few different sizes of these. Like I was saying earlier, this has two, so they're two big ones instead of four medium ones. So I went and got the big guy because I used to never do these engines. I would always do foreign engines, Jetty and Life. But here we go. And the reason why this grease-based stuff is annoying is that as soon as I get a little bit of this, in between this suction cup and this valve, they're not going to want to stick. You're going to see me struggle with it. Actually, let me just go ahead and go get some paper towels. This is how confident I am. Gotta grab the whole roll, not just a couple, because there's reasons. So let's see here. There's probably instructions here, like cautions. Don't feed it to a kid, you know? I think you should be doing that anyway. Common sense would dictate. So, go ahead and crack this open. I don't know if you guys can hear that noise outside, but it's super annoying. For me, at least. I'm gonna lick it before I stick it. Once again, that's how I was taught. So, now we got that suction cup. Bam. You see, I don't know if I can get it to focus. This is what we're gonna be grinding on. I don't know if you can see this one. There's a little bit of pitting on it and such. I'm gonna get all that out. I'll show you the difference because it's gonna be a shinier metal when I'm done with it, because I'm literally smoothing it out, making them to where the mated surface are. So what we're gonna do here is we're gonna set it down on the seat and we're gonna rotate it for a little bit, and then we're gonna come up, turn it quarter turn, put it back down, and wiggle back and forth again. Come up, quarter turn, wiggle it back down a little bit. I haven't done this in a while, so I may be a little bit out of practice, but you'll see me, just like you will, if this is the first time you're doing this, you'll very quickly start to find your groove. I'm putting way too much right now, but you know, do what I say, not what I do. Oh, get in there. So, you hear that? All right. Look at that. Perfect for the video, right? Struggle as much as I can. So I'm wiggling it, rotate it. Hear that sound already? You don't really need to apply much downward force. You're just letting that metal on metal action do itself. You don't need to be grinding into it, trying to put it down there. Just the action of you doing this is gonna be enough. Look at me, I'm already at practice. For me, the audible change is the most telling, for me at least. I don't know if you can hear it very well because of the noise that's going outside, but that's how it always is. You try to do a video, I'm trying to help you guys learn something, and they just mess it all up for me. They ruin it. But we're gonna lap some valves. You can have the machine shop do this, but they're gonna charge you more, and this is one of the most important steps, so I wanna do it right. I wanna make sure it's done right and done the best it's gonna be done, and I know that I'm gonna do that. Something like this I don't trust with somebody else. I go ahead and do it, because this is the most important. This is what gives us our power stroke. You saw it, big power, dust power. So, don't worry, like banging it up and down, you're not gonna do it any more than the force of the motor doing it. That's what your springs are doing. How hard it is for me to compress these, to take them keepers out, to put to get the springs off, so this valve will actually come off. You're not gonna hurt this thing. I mean, explosions happen in here. Every engine will be different. I'm gonna go ahead and check, because these are new seats. I don't know how, when I look at them, they look like they have a little bit of a lip that I'm gonna have to get past, and I don't know how that's gonna turn out. Oh yeah. So I hope you can see the color change here. I don't know if you're gonna be able to with my crappy camera, but you see how, okay, let's see here. I don't know if you can really, you see how that's shinier now? It was, dark and tinted like the rest of the valve was, and you see how it's shinier? You can start to see how all my pitting is still there. Those are the pitting on the valves. Look, it's getting better over on this side, but those are what I'm trying to get rid of. By the end of this is going to be one solid color. You should see one solid ring around the valve, and the same down here, you'll see one solid ring. That's the goal. Nobody's gonna reach the goal for us though, so we gotta reach it ourselves. Look at me. I hope you guys appreciated that. I thought I got some on the stem. Hope you guys appreciated my drawing. I took way too long on that, by the way. Maximum effort. But I made that water pump worth double what it was with a shitey amount of time. A sketchy amount of time. There we go. All right. Still got more to go, but I hope you can see it getting better. It is shinier around there, but we want that all consistent one color. We don't want any of that pitting. See that pitting there? You don't want any of that. We want it to be nice and shiny. I mean, it's not going to be shiny. Not like me polishing that water pump earlier. I didn't even film that. I didn't want you guys to make fun of me for polishing a water pump, a cheap eBay water pump. Trying to be quiet so you can hear the difference, because it's real coarse, so it's really loud, and then it gets finer, and it's like it gets higher in the octave. Well, your arms start to get tired, especially when you're in awkward position like I am. But just because these valve stems are so long. All right. Right now, you need to make a call when it's time to switch to the fine. If you're going to use this stuff, if you use the water-based stuff, you just keep going. You keep going until you're happy with it. With this stuff, you need to make a call. I'm borderline now to where I could go ahead and switch to the fine stuff and work my way slowly. But for the sake of time, I think I'm going to stay with the strong stuff. But can you see the color difference completely from how it was? Look, there's still pitting there, you gotta get out. but see the color difference compared to how it was and how it is now, how it's actually silver instead of the gray that's up here, the darker color. Yeah, that's what you're going for. Eventually there will be none of this pitting and it will be a even finer gray. But my battery's going dead, so I'm gonna switch out batteries and bring you guys back in a second. I think I'm gonna switch to our fine stuff. Yeah, go buy a roll of paper towels because you're gonna use them a lot here. Don't go steal your girlfriend's. Trust me, it doesn't work out. Alright, so here. Like, that's probably the best spot right there. But we still have some pitting over here. But I'm gonna go ahead and switch to fine and try to cut these out with the fine. But that's probably the best spot where my finger is. There's none of that pitting or anything. Those black spots we're trying to get rid of. But since I'm switching to fine, I'm gonna go ahead and wipe off the seat because I haven't been. I've been getting it everywhere. But I'm not really worried about getting it everywhere because obviously I'm gonna clean the head once again before we assemble. But this is all the stuff that goes into it before you assemble. Like I'm trying to make fire.